This
That was pretty good there.
on the SportsMap Radio Network.
Presented by Rocket Mortgage.
Live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios. Here's Eitan Shander, Barrett Brooks, and Harry Mays.
There's a report that just came out. We went so far as to bring in the resident Jets fan on the network, Jake Asman, to kind of get some clarity on what that team would feel like if, in fact, something would happen with Doug Pederson getting traded to the Jets. And if you're taking bets right now, or if you're playing the futures on the global market about Doug Pederson's immediate future with the Philadelphia Eagles, then you may feel a little better if you believe this report that came out from Jeff McMullen. And as we welcome in our own NFL insider, of course, courtesy of JAKIB Media here, you can read John McMullen on Philly Voice. You can read JohnSI.com with the Eagles Maven as well, and follow him at JF McMullen on Twitter. Here is the latest from Jeff McMullen, and it does not make Doug Pederson look good at all. On top of promoting Press Taylor to OC, Doug Pederson's coaching suggestions to Eagles owner Jeffrey Lurie also had Andrew Briner moving from pass game analyst to quarterback coach, promoting Matt Burke from D-line coach to DC, or bringing ex-DB's coach Corey Unlin back as defensive coordinator, and even said further, said McMullen that Pederson wanted to retain Dave Phipp as special teams coordinator. Lurie was underwhelmed. John McMullen, how much of this, not to bring in McMullen by any means as far as credible or not, just in your reporting, in your opinion, how much of this do you think has merit versus how much of this is muddying waters for an inevitable departure of the head coach?
100% accurate. Already I'd reported that Press Taylor, everyone kind of knew that Doug wanted to make him the offensive coordinator. Andrew Briner would go up to quarterbacks coach, as you mentioned, from passing game analyst, and Matt Burke was the most likely to be promoted to defensive coordinator. That part, none of it is kind of all that new. Dave Phipp was questionable, so that part is, and Corey Unlin being the backup. All of that is new, but yeah, this is what Doug wants, and he wants to be able to choose his coaching staff. I personally think he should be allowed to do that.
Yes.
I mean, this is the way he's wanted to go. The Press Taylor part's a little counterintuitive, but the weakness of Press Taylor is the day-to-day teaching stuff when he's more of a peer or a friend to Carson Wentz. So I think getting him away from quarterback coach would actually be a positive. So he's a really bright guy as far as scheming goes. I don't think it's as bad as people think it is.
What is the most important position in your view? Is it the quarterback's coach right now for the development of Carson?
Yeah.
Or redevelopment, I should say.
Yeah, redevelopment.
Reprogramming.
Right.
Yeah. One of the things, I mean, Carson Wentz did not like John DeFilippo personally because John is a hard ass, to be honest. And he was on him, man. And he would always point to Carson Palmer. He told me that was the best guy to look at as far as mechanics. And he built him up. I mean, that was one of the things when he was coming out of North Dakota State. Everyone looked at his mechanics and said, this has got to improve. And John was able to do that. And I think you have a slow regression ever since he left. So I don't know if Andrew Briner's the guy to do that, but that new voice, it needs to be there, and it needs to be an important one.
So what's more important right now? Fixing Carson or just fixing the team as a whole? I mean, what is the owner really looking at? You know, is that the deciding factor that Carson's unhappy, and if he can't make Carson happy, he's got to go? Or is it the fact that, you know, Jeffrey Lurie does not like how the team is being run, and he doesn't like, you know, he doesn't want to go forward with it?
Yeah, he doesn't want to go. Jeffrey's big with outside names. He's big with splashy names. He knows the fan base is going to be upset. I retweeted Jeff's report. I mentioned this was the plan before, as I said, and already fans are going nuts. Fire Pederson. You can't go this way. Jeffrey Lurie understands that. So he wants the Dan Quinns as defensive coordinator. He wants James Urban as offensive coordinator. He wants something different that the people will get excited about. That's not necessarily the path forward. I wrote about on Sports Illustrated this morning about why he's using, people say, you're going to die on the Press Taylor Hill. It's not about Press Taylor. It's about trust. He's dying on the trust hill. He trusts Press Taylor. He doesn't trust Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman. So he wants people around him that he trusts. That's what this hill is about.
Is he going to get traded?
I don't think the Jets would have to trade for him, but that Pro Football Talk report, that was about Doug Pederson. When they came out with that loosely veiled, there's talk about a coach possibly being traded. It was about Doug Pederson to the Jets. So, I mean, Joe Douglas is there. It's obvious he likes him. I think he'd love to have him, but I also think Joe is smart enough to wait it out. He probably won't have to trade for him.
What do you think happens today with this meeting?
It's up to Jeffrey, obviously. If he's going to hold, I think Doug's at the point, and this goes back 12 months to Mike Rowe. This is where this all started. Doug wanted him back. He went up there. He told us all that he was coming back. He had to reverse and do the 180 24 hours later. He was very upset by that. I don't think he's going to do it again. So then the ball's in Jeffrey's court. If you have that much of a problem with Taylor and Burke and Briner, you're going to have to fire him. That's how I think it's going to be.
Wow.
Well, I think he has enough cachet to have to worry about it, though. So, I mean, he'll be picked up. He'll be one of the top head coaches looking for a job. If they do fire him, where do we go after that? Where do you think that, Jeffrey wants to go? Is he going to go with, a college guy? Is he going to go with somebody that's already proven? What direction?
Well, he's going to have to go with a guy who has no cachet. He's going to have to go because if you're a named coach, if you have options, you're not going to come into this situation where they just fired a coach less than 3 years after a Super Bowl. And, oh, by the way, you have to do everything we say. That says first-time head coach. That says guy with no
Gabe
other
Kapler.
option.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's exactly what it is, because looking at this team and the way it's constructed, they're asking guys to come in and work magic. As a defensive coordinator, anybody other than Schwartz would have been buried with trying to get that talent out there that they were forced to use out there. That's something a coach does not want to come in. A team with no talent. I mean, who's going to want to entertain even a sniff of this job if you have to go out there and vertically play with the guys that the GM brings in?
And that's the worst part of this, Barrett, is the fact that Jeffrey Lurie doesn't seem to understand. He's worried about position coaches. He's not even worried about personnel. The problem, number one problem on this team is personnel. And he seems to be clueless about that.
He's got a blind spot.
It's amazing, isn't
for
it?
Howie.
It is the darkest of spots that's blinding completely. Now, here's the thing. I'm curious. John, when you look across what happened over the weekend, and we roasted Barrett already for 25 minutes on the Steelers debacle, so feel free if you'd like to pile on to do that. But what was the most disappointing moment across the board from Saturday, in which it kicked off with the Colts, Bills, through last night? When you look at all 6 games, what was the biggest disappointment, the most disappointing moment, if you will?
The most disappointing moment was I forgot to switch over to Nickelodeon because I think that was great.
You didn't miss much.
Yeah, I thought it was great, but I think the most disappointing team was Pittsburgh. I mean, they were set up. You got a team with all the COVID issues. They don't have a head coach, and it's almost like they took it for granted, and they just got punched in the mouth and could never recover. Then I look at Mike Tomlin when you have that 4th and 1. I mean, when you get that far behind, and I love Mike Tomlin, I think he's a Hall of Fame coach. You got to take some chances. I joke that guy's so conservative he got deplatformed after making that decision. So he punts the football. You get a touchback, and they go right down and score, game over. So I was really disappointed not only on how Pittsburgh handled that, but also Mike Tomlin. And that's not typical for me.
Well, what about the Vrabel punt? Or
That was bad
not?
too.
Yeah,
was
okay.
bad.
Just wanted to see.
Yeah.
That,
But I mean, at least it was a close game. This is a game where you have to take chances. You have to understand you're in the moment. Can you imagine if you convert that and Pittsburgh scores and all of a sudden they're within one score, the pressure that would have been put on Cleveland, a team not used to playing in that situation, a team with no head coach, no offensive line coach, special teams guy, that would have put such pressure on them. And he just said, let's punt it away. I thought
You think Roethlisberger returns?
Not with a $41 million cap hit. But, yeah, he wants to return. He'll work it out. I mean, the Steelers were so bad. Yeah, he didn't look good down the stretch. But
he made us sit through that steaming pile of horse bleep. He's got to pay for that.
Well,
sorry.
They got, part of it is they have to run the football. They have to get a running game. They totally went against that. They're just chucking it all over the place. Mm-hmm. And then when you get behind, there's going to be interceptions.
How about the Seattle implosion?
Yeah, that was pretty bad. More so for the fact that the offense, similar to Pittsburgh, was so bad down the stretch. They were so good early in the season and so bad down the stretch. And you just don't expect that with Russell Wilson. And DK Metcalf was so frustrated. Jalen Ramsey was shutting him down. But the Rams, they're starting John Wolford because they wanted to. What does that say about Jared Goff? That's like an underdeveloped story. It's amazing they're where they are.
You're right. Well, one thing I was looking at the entire time after especially after the game with the Colts game was the fact that they were, basically just sending off Phillips, and saying, all right, you're no longer going to be our quarterback. And the whole time I'm thinking to myself, they are really laying out the red carpet for Carson Wentz. Do you still think that's a possibility?
There's so many quarterback options. I definitely think, Barrett, they want a quarterback, but they're going to have so many options. What if Deshaun Watson is available?
Right.
I mean, he really, really hates that organization. If he forces it to a point, I mean, obviously they're not going to want to trade him in the division, but I'm just talking as a whole. When people say, will teams take a chance on Carson Wentz? Yes, there will be a team. But just because Frank Reich is there, that's too easy. They'll be looking for a quarterback. And Frank said if Phillip Rivers wants to come back, he'd love to have him back.
John, thank you, sir. We'll chat again on Thursday for overtime. We appreciate you.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it, Mafia.
You got it. That's John McMullen at JF McMullen.